we celebrate the verdict, but at the same time, the Rittenhouse verdict came from a jury in Wisconsin.
Right.
Different circumstances, but not too unrelated. A jury gave that verdict, and a jury gave a verdict in Brunswick. So to celebrate the Brunswick verdict, if you call it celebration, you have to also look at what happened in Wisconsin. It's another jury that did that work. So at some point, we got to get to the point where the politics is taken out of this, because I think that's what happened in Wisconsin. And maybe to some degree in Brunswick, I don't know. But I do think what led up to Brunswick's verdict with the action of that father that insisted that this something be done, and with the protest that ensued from the very beginning, they would not give up. With somebody standing up to hold that first DA accountable, I don't think those were by accident. That region of our state has a lot of to offer us now as a model of going forward. The way I think the whole community worked around this, leading up to it, there was always some sense of advocacy for what was happening, but there was no violence. And I think that went a long way in helping people. Maybe it was embarrassment, but I think it went a long way to saying that we got to do the just and right thing here. So,
I'm sorry. I need to say this. Have you all spoken to how that video came out? Have you all talked about that yet?
Not yet, no.
no.
Okay, so the video was given over because they thought it would show that they had done the right thing. Because they literally, honestly, within their being, every fiber in their being, they really saw this particular video that we all watched many, many times. They lived it, and they were confident that it would help their case, although they didn't really have a case at that point because, they had not been charged and were not going to be charged. Can you imagine if the situation were reversed?
Right.
And that's where my heartache lies.
The moment in the trial when they dehumanized him to the point to make him seem animalistic, stating that he was running with no socks on and showing his dirty feet with long nails. That implication is to say he was some type of animal. And I think the prosecution thought that by sending that message to the jury, they put this type of image in their heads, they surely would find him guilty. That was the lowest of lowest, for me. And who's the winner in terms of the people in this situation with this verdict? Surely the Arbery family, got justice for the murder of their son. But we got to see what the United States looks like all over the world when it comes to humanity. They heard that statement, and the people in the courtroom gasped. I don't know if you could hear that on the news, but they gasped when they heard the prosecution state, make him look like he was some cruel thing.
The defense.
Around.
The defense.
It was the defense, yes.
The defense.
Defense, I'm sorry, defense, thank you. Defense was early in the morning for me here, sorry. Yes, the people in the courtroom gasped when they heard the defense. Make him look like this type of some animal, lurking in the neighborhood that needed to be killed.
Yes.
I didn't hear the gasp. I was too busy screaming at the TV.
Yes.
I mean, I
Yes.
absolutely
I-
could not believe that was said, period.
But it was
I might
with
want to,
intent. It was
yes, and I'm,
intent.
sorry to
Because
interrupt, go ahead.
these are the views that white supremacists have of us. I mean, why else do you go with guns to shoot someone who's Black?
Hmm.
Objectify them and make them look inhuman.
Hmm.
And then in their minds, they can do it with a clear conscience. And so that's what they have to do.
Mhm.
So I really do feel so hurt deep down inside.
And that is not all that different from what happened and is still happening at times in the context of Germany in terms of the dehumanizing of those who happen to be Jewish. That is, there are similarities in that inhuman behavior and that hatred that is taught to children ultimately as they grow up and learn at the dinner table how their mom and dad or may talk about people of a different race, in this case, Jewish peoples. And that is something that you learn when you grow up. And that is something I was, without me realizing it, part of as a teenager, still told anti-Semitic jokes that now that I understand what the whole history of Germany is about, I'm appalled by it. But I also realize that we are not born racist, we're not born anti-Semitic, we are taught to be one way or the other, and we have to unlearn that. We have to be able to see the full humanity of everyone and have to embrace that and be able to in this case, from the point of view of an individual who comes from a family of victimizers in a sense, to recognize that. And it ultimately then also turns into pain, not at all comparable to the kind of pain that Dwala may have felt as she so like is confronted with the reality of a trial that is just giving you one little snippet of the reality for so many in our society. And that's just as once there was a just verdict, but 99% of the time we do not have that. And when I have then my students basically tell me directly after the Rittenhouse trial that they are pretty much expecting this to be another not guilty verdict, that tells you just how broken we are as a society. Our criminal justice system is just an expression of that brokenness. And that tells you how much work we have to do, because if we're not able to face that reality, if we're not able to face the truth, then we will not be able to be forgiven, to forgive, to heal, to reconciliate in the end. And it is difficult to make those steps, and it is uncomfortable to make those steps. But as Brian Stevenson said, we need to be able to embrace that too, because then only then will we be able to move forward. And this is a one case only. Now we're like, I can already see and hear and read those comments, but some of the more conservative voices that will say like, now we are in a post-racial era. No, we're not. We weren't there when Barack Obama was elected president either, and it just happens to be, the one time when it seems that we were able to accept our full humanity. We're all God's children in the end, but gosh, we have a lot of work to do with this, and I see this with my own students, and I have learned so much from the workshops and conversations also with Dr. Catherine Meeks, that I sometimes do those little impromptu role players in class. And I have a football player in my class who is like 6'2", African-American male, and he looks intimidating. But I'm about the same size and I do not look intimidating, not because I don't have muscles, but because I'm white. And so like I'm standing in front, he stands right next to me, and then I ask the class to look at us. And then I asked them all, like, so what do you see? And then just think about it, and then see us walking down the street in the middle of the night, individually or together. What do you see? And those are the kinds of exercises we have to go through in our mind. and reflect on what that means. Because we're not free in this country. The descendants of victims are not free, as the descendants of victimizers are also not free, because we are trapped in that system that was set up at some point centuries ago with the creation of a classification system called races, and they were then utilized as a tool to basically create this superiority versus inferiority. And that has transcended into all these experiences over time, and it has influenced everything from the chances we have to get a good education, the chances we have to get a decent or fair trial, to get decent pay, whatever. And it is all connected. And so from slavery to convict leasing to lynching to death penalty to you can add on so many more things. So that is all connected. And it is painful, but it's the truth. And once we are able to talk about the truth, we can say, like, yes, that is true. And this is what we must change. And you and I, we all can do this together. And that is what I'm dreaming about. And we all are dreaming about it. And we can make this happen. We have to be courage. We have to have the courage to do so.
I think when we heard this verdict on Wednesday, I think most of us were overjoyed that it was the right verdict. But I think at the same time, some of us probably felt that if it had gone the other way, we would have understood that based on where it was taking place. So I want to applaud the jurors because I think in many ways they went against the culture of the day.
Right.
They got to go back and live with people now that they basically voted against with their verdict. But they had the courage to do that. And I suspect now here in the makeup of the jury that it was Ahmaud's humanity that got them. If those women, the majority on that jury were mothers and had children, particularly male children, they probably went in thinking, what if that had been my son? And I think a part of it was humanity. And I think the more we see each other through humanity, one human being to another, the better off we'll be. But there's a lot of work, I think, still that needs to be done. And I go back again and say the people of Glenn County, I think, had a lot to do with this. Is that the sheer hospitality throughout this process that I saw being demonstrated in Glenn County helped a lot to say that, we are here to solve this problem. We're not here to antagonize the system, because it was very easy, with that one defense lawyer that everything could have turned based on what he was saying. But people responded in kindness in a major way when he said no more black preachers. 100 black preachers showed up, and more was standing by to come. So I think the people were very responsive to what was going on without being overtly to the point where I'm of an age where if black men stood up for themselves in any way, you were called uppity. And you had to do something to that uppity inward person because you're out of your place. And I really applaud those citizens of Glenn County who were able to do the same thing without being uppity. It may have come, but it did come in a way that would offend the sensibility of decent people who tend to take offense to certain people being uppity. So I think we got a lot of work to do, but I think with this, the bravery of this jury says that we can do it together. And I still want to commend them for what I say was a brave act to tell the truth.
Having been clergy in Glenn County, I think we can also be very grateful for Tom Purdy, for the Jewish Rabbi Rachel Bregman, for Rita Spalding, who's one of our deacons, for Dwayne Cope, who's the priest at St. Athanasius. And that started when I was there. Tom was the pastor in town who said, guys, we got to all do this together. And that quote, Old South wealthy heritage that Christchurch Frederica carried gave him some cachet in certain parts of the community that I would never have had, would never have been able to pull off. And the fact that clergy in Glenn County have been working together all these years, and you noticed they were very quick to step up. They were very quick to issue a statement. They were very quick to begin publicly praying. They were very quick to include all clergy in Glenn County, both Black and white. And I think that history also was helpful. And I think we owe a debt of gratitude to Tom and Dwayne and Rita and others there.
And Willetta.
Helped to make that happen.
Well,
And Willetta
Yes.
and Ed, and I mean, all of the folks who really have stepped up and made those things happen.
I think that the main things on my mind. So, I'm a white man from Georgia. I'm a historian. I teach Georgia history every spring. And this felt like a very full and intense moment Wednesday. And I do think I totally get the points made that there's so much work to be done, and that the jury's decision in no way, undoes so much of the damage that was done. But I heard the verdict as momentous, in light of the long history and everything that goes on in the present. And I guess thinking about it, reflecting on it, I think that in terms of the work to be done, that the McMichaels and Bryan acted out of and were inspired by a basic sickness in our society, that is not limited to just, that is a deep thing. I think at the base, a key part of the sickness is this basic lie that is this white projection of danger and criminality onto Black people as Black people. And so thinking back to the era, right as racial slavery came to an end, no sooner were formerly emancipated, formerly enslaved people emancipated, then white people began saying that their loyal and faithful slaves had now become dangerous criminals, right? And the transformation was just like automatic and overnight. The transformation was in the white mindset and the white projection. But I think that basic lie that began again right after the end of slavery, endures and has deadly power in the present. Even though, if you're looking at the overthrow of Reconstruction, if you're looking at lynching in the Jim Crow era, if you're looking at anti-Black violence in the Civil Rights era, if you're looking at anti-Black violence today, it's the opposite, right? But the lie is out there, but people act on the lie. I think I would say it's imperative for white Christians to do soul searching and in a kind of contrite spirit and think about the ways that they participate in and perpetuate the lie.
listening to the verdict and being involved in the clergy group at the courthouse for many, many days over the last year and a half, it's hard to know what to think. It's hard to know how to respond. It's hard to know how to feel. But at the very least, gratitude for what I see as a merciful verdict, better than we deserve, probably, because I'm not sure what actual change this represents. I'm hopeful and prayerful that it represents not just a one-time verdict in the face of overwhelming evidence and outrageously violent conduct. And I pray that there is more to come in terms of unity and healing that could take place as a result of this verdict. It's mostly relief in the short term, which will quickly be followed, if we're not careful, with a strong and sort of impending realization that there's so much work to be done, and that this is maybe the beginning, hopefully, prayerfully, the beginning of some real healing in this community. But I'm hopeful in a way that I wasn't even 3 weeks ago. So for that, I'm grateful. And I know Julian agrees with that as well.